Welcome to NJ and Fry, and this is the After Chat. You know, every Thursday at 10 a.m. Central Time, we have our airing of NJ and Fry with myself, NJ Stevenson, and Sandra Fry of Fry and Company. And we're super excited to have with us Lakeisha Williams in the After Chats. We're going to talk about roadblocks, or you could call it anxiety. Was it anxiety?
Adversity.
Adversity. I knew it was one of those A words.
It was an A word.
It was not that A word.
We're going to talk about adversity, or like we talked about earlier, barriers.
Yes. Roadblocks. Absolutely. Lakeisha, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your business, about you personally, all the stuff. You know the stuff.
Well, hey guys. I am Lakeisha Williams, owner and operator of Key Administration, LLC, and the Key is spelled K-E-I, which is one of the many nicknames that I have. We are a virtual assistant agency where we connect business owners, mostly solopreneurs, female solopreneurs, with their first virtual assistant to help them get organized, to automate their business, and to get free, to not feel like they're working another job, but actually being a business owner, working on their business instead of in their business. By profession, I work with a insurance company. I can't say the name of it. We actually just got that email about not putting the name of the company out there, but I work for an insurance company, providing regional support. So doing the same thing, admin work, a little bit of technical support mixed in with it for my particular team, because that's the kind of stuff that I love to do. I've been married now almost 2 years. We'll celebrate our 2-year anniversary in July. I have 2 spunky puppies. One is a lab and the other one is a lab and pit bull mix. They're about 5 to 6 months old. Full of energy. I'm the youngest of 4, no children, so the puppies are our children, and we love to travel. We try to this year we've actually traveled almost every single month, going to a speaking engagement or something like that. But my husband and I, we love to do business together. That's how we get all of our quality time in between running businesses and me working a job. So it works out pretty cool for us.
Keisha, and your husband is a DJ, right?
Correct. He is a DJ.
So do you probably often get to go out with him to jobs? No?
I do my best not to. I'm going to be honest. Believe it or not, I am a homebody. I love to be at home. He doesn't understand how I can go weeks on end without ever leaving the house, and I'm just fine with it. He'll tell me, you got to get up and at least go outside and get some fresh air, and I'm like, I'm fine. I'm good in the house. Don't care for being outside. But every now and then I'll go with him and support him. The main events that we do together are conferences, whenever he does the sound for conferences, and weddings. We found that we did one by accident, and I ended up emceeing at the wedding. And now whenever someone requests his services, they request both of us. So yeah, I just kind of got pulled into it.
I'd stay home too. I don't want to do that job.
Right.
That's pretty interesting.
So we're talking about adversity today and roadblocks. And I suppose with, you kind of have multiple businesses going on there in your household, plus working a job
right
outside of that. So you can probably give us a good idea of the roadblocks that you're running into.
Oh, man. So the biggest one is the time management, because I do have clients that would prefer me be available in the daytime. And that was one of the things that actually had made me propel my business and start to scale my business, because my clients were starting to lean on me more and more during the daytime hours, and I'm at a job for 8 hours out of the day, not to mention the time that I have to take to get up and get ready for work, and then the drive to work and the drive back home, and then trying to get my mind to shift from being at work to actually working for myself and having that discipline to get through.
So that's a good point for virtual service providers, because there's a lot of service providers out there that are working jobs and starting businesses, or they have a business on the side. I know MJ herself worked for 4 years in her own business while working another job too. So if you can talk a little bit about, you know, how you dealt with that, you know, your clients wanting to talk to you during the day when you're working. And I know you work in corporate, because we chatted a little bit before going live about where she works, but so she works in corporate, and there's probably regulations, and I know you can't do your business while you're working for someone else, because they're paying you for your time. So you can't be making money in your own business, because I had run into the same thing when I was working in corporate too. You cannot make money for yourself while you're working for somebody else, and they're paying you too.
Exactly. So there's a little bit of leeway with it. I can honestly say I have a really, really great manager, supervisor. They're really relaxed. I guess you could say the atmosphere there is very relaxed. So we're able to have our phones. So typically I let my clients know that I do have that window of my breaks. If we need to schedule, and you have to schedule that time with me ahead of time. You can't just call me out of the blue. Now, you may be able to shoot me over a text message. Depending on what all is involved in the text message, I may be able to give them a quick answer, or shoot them over my calendar to get some time on my calendar. But other than that, I really utilize that free time that I have. So before I started going live in the mornings with the ride to work with my husband, and we actually call that Raw Law, the Ride with Raw Law, because our initials are RAW and LAW. Once we got married, it became Raw Law. So I would utilize that time to do discovery calls in the morning, or if one of my clients needed to have a quick meeting in the morning, I would utilize that time. Well, I was able to start transitioning them to get used to actually talking to me in the evenings. So now I use that time to go live, but I utilize every free moment that I have. So a 15-minute break, I can get a quick 15-minute call in, or if I need to talk to a team member, I can talk to one of my team members. And then my lunch break, I utilize the crap out of my lunch break. I typically take my laptop to work with me. So I may be on my laptop, I'm on the phone, talking on the phone, sending messages, and doing something on the computer, as well as I have a couple of notebooks that I take with me to journal in, you know, and work out different things like that. So that's the biggest thing for me to get.
Would you say that would be, I'm sorry, would you say that would be like, that wouldn't be your story if you had small children?
Absolutely. If I had small children, no, I wouldn't be able to utilize that time like that. I can honestly say a couple of ladies that I know one young lady that has 6 children.
Oh my.
And she works full-time from home, and we actually had a conversation about it, how she balances 6 children, and 2 of them are small. They're ages 2 and not quite 1 years old yet. And I'm like, how in the world do you do it? And a husband, and she runs a sales company. So she's doing sales calls all day long.
Yeah.
And I was like, people ask me all the time, how in the world do you do all of the stuff that you do and work a full-time job? And I'm over here asking her, how in the world do you do what you do with 6 children and a husband? So,
well, my kids aren't little. My kids are in they're older. They're in their 20s and 30s. But I do have 5 pets that are like children. It's like having a daycare here at my house. And when you get to watch the clip from this morning, you'll see that my dog, he actually had to get his ears and his nose in the video this morning. So I ended up having to excuse myself and put him in the crate. So he interrupts me quite often when NJ and I go live. So I kind of understand. I mean, he's not, I don't want to compare him to a child because he's not, but he's only 2 or not quite 2. So it is kind of like having a toddler in the house sometimes. You know?
Oh, I know what you mean with my 2. Right now they're outside getting their exercise in, but if they were here in the house, they'd be coming back and forth, jumping up on my lap. One of them loves to actually get in my lap, and on one live I was doing, she jumped up in my lap. and was right there on the screen. I don't know what it is about when you hit that live button. They just love to come and get on the screen.
It's radar.
Yeah. I guess that's adversity. That would be for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's adversity for me. What am I going to do about it? Because
Right. So yeah, and it was for me as well, NJ. So what I ended up doing was my husband and I kind of worked it out to where whenever I do need to go live, I kind of let him know when I'm going live. That way, if they are within the house and they're not in their kennel, he can kind of keep them at bay in the living room with him, or I may shut my office door so that they can't come in. But now they're starting to kind of mellow down. They love the rawhide toys and stuff like that. So if we can get them to bring those in the office with them, they'll sit down and they'll behave themselves. But if not, I want all of mommy's attention. They're both just like, okay, it's my turn to get attention. And they argue. You said, like kids, they argue for attention like kids do. Like, no, it's my turn to be in mommy's lap. No, it's my turn. So, yeah.
I don't have any. I'm thankful. I don't have the energy for it. I don't. But I was curious, what is your definition of adversity? When you think about it, how do you define it?
My definition of adversity would be the things that slow you down. Not so much, stop you and slow you down, because there are some things that are self-inflicted adversity, and then there's outside adversity. We self-inflict adversity on ourselves when we don't do the things that we're supposed to do. Like, we know we should be doing our marketing calendars, but we're scrolling through Facebook, just looking at videos, seeing what everybody else is doing. So that's one. So just the things that slow you down from reaching whatever the goal is that you set for you.
That is one of the things that we talked today. We did, our segment was a little bit, it went a little bit deeper into mindset. And that was the thing that we talked about, is self-inflicted adversity. I brought that up to Sandra because that's a huge point for me as a coach. I work with a lot of people. I call myself a coach here because Sandra thinks I'm a coach. So she thinks I'm very coach-like. So I'm just playing along with it.
That's how I refer to her, as coach-like, because I know she doesn't like the term coach.
Yeah, so I'm using that, but there is a bunch of self-inflicted adversity, like a whole lot, and it's a problem.
Yeah, very much so. It could be the one deciding factor whether or not you're successful. Like those that are like me that are still working a full-time job that want to transition out. That self-inflicted adversity is what can hold you in that job.
Yeah.
And then it could also work to get you out of that job, not in the way you want to get out of it, but it can work to get you out of the job.
Yes, exactly. See, that, Sandra, that was what we talked about earlier as well, because we talked about the fact that these little things like what you talked, they snowball. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it becomes a huge problem when it really started out like this.
Yeah, something minute.
It started out just like that, and then it just becomes this whole big thing. So, what are some things a person can do? Some people think they don't have self-control. Maybe they don't have self-control. So let's use your example. You're on Facebook when you know you should be doing this other thing. How do you get self-control when it's not natural? Some people are very disciplined, extremely disciplined. If they need to do something, they're on it. But other people have shiny object issues. They lack the self-discipline, so they start inflicting this adversity on themselves. How do you get out of that?
So one way, because that was me, the example that I gave you was me at one point in time. And I still kind of slip back into it every now and then. But I had a great friend / mentor. She doesn't like it when I call her a mentor, but
was her name?
She taught me a lot of different things. And one of the things that she taught me is whenever you are in a work mode, set timers for yourself. We usually have our phones with us. She told me to set a different alarm. So decide on how long I want to work before I have that break, to let my mind kind of wander off into la la land. But I need to have a trigger that brings me back in the work mode. So setting those alarms for yourself. So like if you want to take a 30-minute break, If you want to work for an hour to an hour and a half, work and set an alarm that tells you when to stop. Take and have it set to where you can stop working for 30 minutes, but have another one at the end of that 30 minutes that triggers you to get back into work mode.
But
So
I'm kind of curious because, I mean, you mentioned time blocking, but you also, because you work another job and your business and your husband's business, you're not building a lot of margin in your schedule. So do you ever find like your work day crosses into your business or vice, because
kind of sort of
they specifically end at a certain time?
Yeah, I kind of do it, use the same method at work. So for me, one of the things that NJ and I talked about, kind of hinted about a little bit, whenever we were doing the sprint, was being able to get up and get that exercise in. I was having some health issues that was causing my legs and feet to swell. So I had to adapt that same exercise that I use at home in my business at work, to where I would force myself to get up out of my chair. So I have my timer set at work. So it's all throughout the day. I actually time block my entire day so that I can make sure that I'm getting up out of my seat, and taking that time to stretch my legs and get the circulation going. So to be able to do that, and then I have a set day. I don't work with every single one of my clients every single day. Each one has a set day of the week that I actually work with them, to where we'll have our meetings and I focus just on their business. And then part of that time when I get home, part of the time is also to spend some time within my business. My business has one day set for itself where all I do is work on my business, but I do a little bit each day in my business as well. So just having those time blocks, and having those for each business. I know exactly how many clients I can handle. And just listening to my body is another thing of, okay, you've overdone it for the week. You've had a real busy week. You had some things that came up. So now you need to scale back on a day. And it's usually my business day that I'll scale back on to get some rest. So.
Okay.
She's like, okay, yeah, all right. Sandra's like,
you're working weekends then too. You're working.
I typically work, I have one client, because she prefers to work and do her cleaning on the weekend. I work with her on the weekend, and then my business is on the weekend.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what the weekend is, when I typically get the most amount of work done.
I like working on the weekend.
I do myself, and my husband works almost 7 days a week. Some weeks he'll have a day off, but he worked on Memorial Day, so I work. If he's not, like I said, I don't have little kids, so if he's working, I might as well work.
Right. And my husband and I are the exact same way. He'll get up. He's, like I said, he's the morning person. If I could be at home, I'd work the back end of the day, not the front end. I'd sleep in every morning. But he's up when the sun cracks through the window. He's up and he's ready to go. So like on Memorial Day, like you said, he got up and he pulled out his laptop and was working on some different ideas and things. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll go into the office and I'll get some stuff done too. So we had a very productive day, and it makes it that much funner for us because we both love business. So it makes it fun to be able to sit down and go through the different ideas, the different things that we worked on. And we really rely on each other's input quite a bit to say, okay, am I over here in left field? Am I in la la land with this idea? Can you help me bring it in? Or if I get stuck, one of us gets stuck. Hey, I'm stuck on this. What can I do? What am I missing to help me get unstuck? So it's a real balance that goes into it.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with interruptions or something that would throw your schedule, something that would create a barrier basically by throwing your schedule off course?
Honestly, I haven't had a whole lot of that. The only thing that really threw it off was getting sick at one point in time. I ended up with the flu, and it put me down for almost 2 weeks. But with that, having open communication with my clients was one of the things that really, really helped, letting them know what was going on, and then having a strong network behind me. of ladies that are willing to come in and pick up the slack for me when I can't, and having those relationships with them. So it seemed like it was a little difficult at first, but I was able to actually realize that, okay, I'm really getting sick here and I need to get on the phone with somebody and get somebody else in place. And all of the ladies that I work with, I typically try at some point in my relationship with my clients, I try to introduce them to the other people that actually help me do all of the things that I do. And I let my clients know from the get-go, it's not just me. It never has been just me. There are other experts that I do lean on to help me out in different areas. So just having that transparency with them.
I've talked about that quite a bit with people that I'm working with. I never, like, and actually NJ and I sort of touched on a little bit this morning. I never feel like I'm in competition with other people.
Exactly.
We might be doing the same thing, because you have to have those other providers to lean on. You can't be, this one woman show basically without, jumping in and asking for ideas or feedback, anything from other people that do the same thing that you do, because they may have a different perspective on it. MJ is a good example. We don't look at things the same way. So sometimes, I just want her opinion of something, and and she's done it to me too. She's asked me for my opinion of something, or how to find something, and bounce it back and forth. And
she's a nice one between us too. So, I'm like, if you need somebody nice, call Sandra.
So NJ, you and I have that in common. Then I have a couple of ladies. I'm like, okay, I need a softer touch, because if I talk to that person, I'm gonna make them mad.
Yeah, if you need somebody nice, call Sandra.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. But like you said, having that partner, because that's the way I look at every relationship, whether it's with another service provider or it's a client that I bring on. I look at it as it is a partnership. So having that partner to lean on, and I typically tend to play devil's advocate a lot, and look at both sides of the coin. So somebody can be tunnel vision, and my husband and I go through it a lot, and he's like, why you always got to do the opposite, think the opposite and bring up the opposite? Because we have to look at both sides to really have a true understanding of what it is that we're talking about, what it is that we're going through.
Well, and you're being proactive. You're trying to see what the possibility of what could happen.
And be prepared, right? And be prepared, or if you can't be prepared, just kind of have a little bit of an ideal of, okay, if it do go this way, what would my natural reaction be? What would my first reaction to it going that direction? What would it be? So,
and you got to be honest with yourself. You can't be like, well, I would handle it like a professional. You have to be honest and say,
right. Look at it like, okay, I know I'm gonna freak out if this happens. I'm gonna go bananas if this happens. Instead of just being, well, I'm gonna handle it this way. No, sometimes my attitude ain't right, and it ain't gonna go that way.
Funny. What's the biggest roadblock or adversity that you faced that you feel really proud of having worked through, and how did you work through it?
Asking for help.
Tell us more.
For help, yes. I've always been that independent one since I was a little girl. Of four, my siblings leaned on my parents a lot more than I did. So as a child, I sat back and I watched all the time. I observed. And I was like, okay, that's not something that I want to do. Okay, you did this and you got praise for that, so I'm going to do that. Oh, you got in trouble for that? No, we're not going to go that route. I want to do it, but we're not going to go that route. I don't want to get a whooping. So
being the youngest, right?
Right. You get to sit back and watch being the youngest. So I came out, even stepping into my adulthood and leaving home, I was very independent. I was set on not having to call my parents to help me out with anything. And it got to the point, at one point, I had a car accident that left me with limited use of my right arm. And I didn't call my mom. I'd been hurt for about a week and a half. And my roommate decided to up and leave just at the drop of a hat. She told me on a Saturday, I'll be gone on Tuesday. You got the house to yourself. Mind you, I'm not working because I can't use my arm. So at some point, I had to sit down and have a conversation with myself. I went from, she left on that Tuesday. I went to, I think, like that Saturday, trying to live by myself. And it was super, super hard. And I just finally sat down and had a conversation with myself and with God. And I was like, okay, I know I don't normally ask nobody to help me with anything. I just try to figure it out on my own. I said, I'm tired. And my phone rang, and it was my mom. And she was like, something is telling me something is wrong with you. What's wrong? And I just broke down, Mom, I need help.
Mm-hmm.
So from that moment on, and I tend to fall, like I said, I tend to fall back and forth into it and not ask for help. But I've now really, really within the last year, really realized that, okay, stop trying to do it on your own. Just because you know you can don't mean that you have to. Stop trying to do it on your own. So I'm proud of the fact that now, before it gets to that point to where I'm over here about to pull my hair out of my head, I'll stop and say, okay, I need to get some help, and I'll open my mouth up and ask for some help.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
I
Yeah.
think that's something that's really difficult for women sometimes.
I think it's more difficult for men, but that's me being, I guess, some guy's going to watch this and go, well, they're being sexist. They're being, she's being
I
sexist.
really kind of work both ways, depending on what it is.
Yeah.
But I've seen it, I'm like Sandra, I've seen it happen more with women because we're put here, and society tells us that we have to be superwoman. We have to take care of the household. We have to make sure the husband is straight. We have to take care of the kids. If we're working a job, we have to be the greatest at our jobs. And we try to do it all without ever asking for any help. So
I'm from a different culture. I am. And I think you're from Louisiana, right?
No, I'm from Arkansas.
I'm from Mississippi. And I'm from a totally different culture. I have a large family. And in my family and my upbringing, there's so many people, you never have to do you didn't have to do anything alone. And if you chose to do that, it's because you chose to do that. So my background and upbringing is so different, where asking for help was not something you were prideful about, because you have this huge family and this network, and it's a given. All you got to do is say, I need, and you got it.
Right. The crazy part about it,
different.
The real crazy part about it, my family is the exact same way. My grandparents on my dad's side had a total of 18 children.
Yeah.
13
and that's why I said you're from, because I knew you were from the South, and I know how we are. That's our culture. We are very, very, that's a cultural thing for us in the South. Is Sandra and I talked about how friendly people are, and that's how we roll out here. So I know, and I'm like, well, no, if you're doing that, that's because you want to, because families are not, they don't come up.
The crazy part about it is being born into such a huge family, I'm smack dab in the middle on one side, and I'm at the end on the other.
Yeah.
By myself. On both sides, there's one child that's the same age as me on both sides, but we were so far apart for so long, it got to that point to where I was too old to play with the younger kids, or I was too young to play with the older kids. So that's what developed that I'm going to do it by myself mentality, because I was left alone by myself to play by myself for so long. And then I migrated to following my grandmothers. When you saw one of my grandmothers, you usually saw me tagging along right behind her. Mm-hmm. So having that just come in that upbringing, although the family worked well together, like whenever we would go to my dad's mom's house, my grandmother's house, you would see all of my aunts in the kitchen doing some part of the meal, working together like that. Mm-hmm. But for me, it was, okay, where are all of the girls that around me that I should be doing that with? Well, they were all together, and no, you too young, you too little, you can't do this with us, or you can't tell us what to do just because you're bigger than us. And I was like, you know what? Just forget it. I'll just go do my own thing. And it just kind of carried over. So to be able to start flipping it back around was a major breakthrough for me.
Yeah.
I do think,
but I know overall, though, that's how we are. That's a normal Southern family thing, because I have a big family too, and I'm like, no, you need to ask for help because you're going to get help. You're going to get help whether you want it or not. You let them find out something's going on. You will be helped.
But yeah, that part, yeah.
Yeah.
Let them find out something's going on. You're going to have all the help you need, even if you don't want it. Yeah.
I think culture does play a big part. I'm from the Northeast, so it's different. You know, we feel like we always have the feeling like we have to, it has to be done, and it should have been done yesterday. Get on it. You know, so, you know, I actually had a friend here who, she was like, you, when I ask you to do something, you're like on it, like just like that. And she liked to take her time. She's from the South. She liked to take her time, a little more laid back. She had a more laid back attitude about it. And I'm like, well, I'm Northeast, so I get on it and I get it done. I don't mess around. And NJ and I, we had a conversation about all about that, about the difference, you know, in the culture and stuff.
Yeah.
You said that, it kind of reminds me of the movie Ants. I know it's an animated movie. I love animated movies. But it reminds me of ants, how the ants would work to prepare for the winter.
Oh, yeah.
And the grasshoppers and stuff wouldn't. They were kind of laid back. So the ants reminds me of people in the Northeast. So y'all are like, yeah, we got to get this done. Let's go ahead and get it done now. And us in the South are more like the grasshoppers. Now, I'm going to let you go and you go and do the work.
You go ahead and work yourself to death. We over here enjoying life. You go ahead.
Exactly.
Because that's what,
I'm still like that to a degree, although I've been in Texas now for about 5 years, so I've really changed my pace because I had to change my view of things. You know, everybody was looking at me like I had 4 heads when I was acting, and I'm like, okay, I don't need people looking at me like I'm an alien, you know. So, so I need to adjust. I need to adapt to my environment. I'm not saying that I've totally left go of that. I mean, I know when my Northeast attitude kicks in a little bit. So I even said to people who I see them looking at me funny sometimes, and I'll be like, I'm acting like Northeast, aren't I? And I need to tone it down a little bit.
bring it down. Yeah, bring it on down. So that's very, very true. So any last questions for her, Sandra, before we close?
No, I think we covered
Yeah.
a lot.
Oh, cool.
Oh, cool.
So I have to ask, Sandy, what part of Texas are you in?
I'm in the western part of the state, Odessa, Midland area.
Okay.
I'm actually very close to New Mexico. About
Wow.
40 minutes I can cross the state line in about 40 minutes into Mountain Time and New Mexico.
Cool. I have not been that far across the state. I frequent Dallas and the Houston area. And my husband and I are kind of flirting around with the ideal of actually moving down NJ's way here in the near future. So don't be surprised if I call you, NJ, and say, hey, I need to book a photo shoot.
Where are you? But where you live? You're from Arkansas. Where are you?
We're actually in the capital city in North Little Rock, North Little Rock.
Oh, okay.
But I'm from Southeast Arkansas, so I'm closer to your home state. Where I was born and raised is closer to your home state.
Okay. Well, come on down.
Yeah.
What's making y'all consider Dallas?
Well, I lived there for a short period of time in 2014, and I really enjoyed it. I moved back because the job I had there ended, and I wanted to just be closer to my parents. My dad was sick at the time, and I didn't like the idea of being, 5-6 hours away. So I moved back to Arkansas. Plus, he and I, our relationship really kicked off, and we got serious. So I moved back to be with him as well.
Yeah.
Now we're ready. Both of us are kind of ready for a change. And I told him I felt like I really didn't get to give Texas the real opportunity that I should have. And I'm just ready for some change. So, and he is too. So
it's kind of funny that NJ, that we're in the same state, because she's half a day's drive away from me. We're about 5 hours apart. So where I'm from in Pennsylvania, I could have driven to the other side of Maryland in the amount of time it takes me to drive to Dallas, and I'm still in Texas.
Texas is that place. I'm telling you, it'll take you all day to move around in this place. It's just that place.
And
So,
Dallas is even worse because because you get to Dallas and then it takes you another hour till you're actually in Dallas.
so
Yeah, we talk about that quite a bit whenever we do come down. The drive from here to Dallas is about a 4-hour drive. And like you said, you get to Dallas, but you're not really in Dallas. You got about another hour to drive. And then the same thing down in Houston. To get from the outskirts of Houston to just about halfway into the mid part of Houston, you've driven about an hour or two. So, yeah.
yeah.
My last trip to Dallas took even longer because I got lost twice.
Oh, bless your heart.
I drove, it's funny because I passed through Fort Worth and then drove into Dallas, and then I think I drove back to Fort Worth and then back to Dallas. Anyway, I got lost twice.
You were lost.
Yeah, I was lost.
Mhm.
But it easily done up there. There's so much going on.
Love GPS. Love GPS.
Right. I still use my GPS here in Arkansas. That tells you how much I don't drive. If I do have to, 9 times out of 10, I have my GPS on to get around. And I've been here this year, makes year number 10 that I've been here in Little Rock, and I still use my GPS.
Well, Little Rock's a pretty good sized city, right? I mean, no?
Not so much, no. Not compared to Dallas, no.
What's your well, I know that, but what's your population? Do you know?
Don't even get me to telling you that story. My husband can tell you.
Me and Sandra probably need to do a meetup. We probably need to pick a city and meet halfway and just have a day. We could do that.
I've been to Little Rock, and my husband and I. I'm trying to think if it was last year. I think it was last year. We drove Calico Rock. Do you know where Calico Rock is in Arkansas? Well,
I've been here my entire life, with the exception of the 5 months that I was in Texas, and I still have not seen our entire state.
Well, it's in the Ozark. It's in the Ozark area. Well, we drove to Little Rock. I think we made a right-hand turn, and then we drove we drove to Little Rock, made a right, and
That is so funny. Really, Sandra?
40 miles. It was another 40 miles into the mountains, and it was like up and down and back and forth and up and down. That 40 miles took us like 2.5 hours.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Our country roads are something else, seriously,
Yeah,
especially up around that area, because you go up and down the hills, and then they wind around throughout the mountains. So yeah, it can take you.
GPS, gave out on us because we were back in the mountains. So GPS gave up on us. It got dark. It was raining, and I'm like, do we know where we're going? We actually did. We didn't get lost. We ended up where we were going, but we went through all these little towns back in the mountains. Mountain Home, I think, was one of them, and then we got to this itty bitty town, Calico Rock, Arkansas.
A majority of the towns, if you blink, you'll miss them. Yeah, and one of the things that I do love about it is, like you said, if your GPS goes out because you're in the country, if you just keep straight of where you're going, you're gonna get to where you're going without the GPS.
Yeah.
Being completely honest about it.
Funny.
Yeah. Well,
It's hard to get lost here.
We'd see the sign for the little town we were coming into, and by the time we would read it, we were in the next little town that we were coming to.
Yep, that's how they go. That is exactly how they go.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. So what would you say, what would be your parting words on adversity, Lakeisha?
I would say don't get stuck. Examine where you are and keep at the front of your mind where you want to go. Sit down and plan out your roadmap, because as we were just talking about GPS and really knowing where you're going, without the planning portion of it, you will only go in circles and you'll stay in your adversity.
Yeah.
So plan it out, sit down, plan it out where you want to go, put the steps in place, you'll get there one way or another.
Awesome. Where can they find you online?
I can be found on my personal page, Lakeisha A. Williams. I can be found on my business page, which is Key Administration LLC, and Key is spelled K-E-I, which is one of my nicknames. I can also be found on Instagram with the same handle, Key Administration LLC.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, this has been our After Chat, Roadblocks and Adversity, and I'm NJ Stevenson.
I'm Sandy Fry. Thank you so much, Lakeisha, for joining us.
Yes, yes, awesome. So we'll see you guys on the next NJ and Fry, which airs on Thursday at 10 a.m. or on an After Chat. Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.